That's great.
Dear Dr. Macdonald, finally, we managed to discuss your research of inscriptions in Saudi Arabia and Jordan, because you've been working in the region for quite some time, probably more than 56 years. So how it started? You've been around since 1960s, 1967, 68.
That's right. I'm very old, but when I was between school and university, I had what's now called a gap year, and I was very interested in the Middle East, and so I did a crash course in Arabic in London before I came, and then in the spring of it was a wonderful experience because everybody was so kind to me and so hospitable, and because I could speak Arabic, if not terribly well, at least more or less understandably, then that was wonderful, and I learnt a lot. But then I went after 5 months wandering around the Middle East, and I had to go back to go to university, and I studied English there because that's what I had originally wanted to do. But I kept up my interest in the Middle East, and after I graduated, I went on an excavation in Jordan, led by Crystal Bennett, who was then the director of the what was then the British School of Archaeology in Jerusalem. And there I met a man called Gerald Lancaster Harding, who had been
another
director,
well-known researcher.
Absolutely. Who had been director of antiquities in Jordan between 1936 and 1956. And he was a world expert on the inscriptions known as Safaitic inscriptions, but also other types of inscription in the area called ancient North Arabian inscriptions. And he filled me with enthusiasm and for these inscriptions. So I went back to Oxford and read Arabic and Aramaic, and then came out to, he was living in Lebanon then, to Lebanon in 1975 to work with him as a volunteer helper. He didn't need a volunteer helper, but he was very kind and let me come and help him and learn a great deal from him. And then in 1976, because of the Civil War,
yes,
we moved to Jordan, and we lived there and until he died in 1979. And then I joined Yarmouk University, which had only recently been founded, with Mahmoud El-Ghul, who was the vice president. And I set up something called the Corpus of the Inscriptions of Jordan project, where we did field work in the desert, recording ancient inscriptions. And I made a huge archive of photographs of all inscriptions ever found in Jordan. and that was for the university there, and and an archive with all the different readings of different inscriptions, because they're quite difficult to read, and so there are quite a lot of different opinions about how they should be read. And this was wonderful because it took me out to the desert, which I love, and to the Harra, the Black Desert, and I've been going there ever since. Eventually, I came back in '83 to England, and came to live near Oxford, and was an independent scholar, as they call us, for some time, and then joined Wolfson College, Oxford, and where I'm still an honorary fellow because I've retired, supposedly retired. Academics don't retire; they just stop being paid. But I went on working. And so I've been going on expeditions to the Harra, and also to Saudi Arabia and in Syria before the civil war there.
I mean, we're talking about the same region. The Eastern Desert stretches from southeastern Syria to Eastern Jordan, and from Eastern Jordan to Saudi Arabia.
Again,
We're talking about same tribes and similar historical circumstances that affected the whole region. You mentioned some
yes.
of founders of Yarmouk University. Also, Professor Ghul is related to Omar Ghul, who's also epigrapher. And
yes,
no, they're related. Omar Ghul is his nephew, and we also have other scholars like Zaidan Kafafi
and
Hani Hayatne.
Absolutely.
And of course, Muawi Ibrahim, who was one of pioneers of archaeology in Jordan. What's interesting is that all of them are also German students. Four of them studied in Germany, and of course they have ties with other academic centers. Muawi Ibrahim represented Jordan at UNESCO for many years. And how that collaboration affected your work in different parts of Jordan, because we have a big corpus of inscriptions in Eastern Desert, but also in Wadi Ram. We have thousands of inscriptions in Wadi Ram, for instance, and thousands of inscriptions in Black Desert.
Absolutely. Tens of thousands, in fact.
Yes.
So yes, I knew all these great scholars when in their younger days, and it was very nice, and I still keep up with them, of course, and it's we have email conversations, and we discuss new things that are found, and so on. So it's that is wonderful. Yes. I also knew sorry, Fawaz Qureshi, who was at became the director of antiquities for some time, and he also worked on Safaitic inscriptions.
What do you think about inscriptions? Can we compare ancient inscriptions with the modern day?
And
yes, please.
In fact, more. Yes, and sorry, I missed the part.
I'm going to repeat. I'm going to repeat my question. Can we compare Safaitic inscriptions with modern day social media, with Twitter, or how they call it now, X, with Facebook.
Yes.
What were messages that ancient Bedouins and inhabitants of these inhospitable places exchange by serving?
They were more like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Yes. So the ancient nomads in the Black. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you just repeat the answer on my question?
Sure.
About
Yes.
exchange of different information by Bedouins.
So these were. Yes. So these were actually more like these graffiti weren't actually aimed at any particular person and because they were alone out in the desert with the camels and the goats and the sheep, and they had nothing to do to pass the time, they would carve these graffiti they would rather be doing, and a lot of ideas about a lot of their fears and their personal feelings. And then they would pray to a large collection of deities. And so these were, it's much more like reading somebody's diary than actually a message to particular people. And because there were so many of them over, say, 400 or 500 years, we can gradually build up a picture of the ordinary people in the desert there. And we don't have that sort of information for any other community in the ancient world. So it's actually very important. We have these personal feelings and personal accounts. We know about their society. We know about their beliefs. We know about how each person felt, which is quite extraordinary, because in the cities and in the countryside, most people couldn't read and write, ordinary people. And even if an ordinary person wrote a graffito on a wall in the city, it's disappeared now because most of the walls were plastered and the plaster has disappeared. It's only in places like Pompeii, which were suddenly destroyed, that a lot of the plaster has survived. Sorry. And I should say, actually, we have Safaitic inscriptions in Pompeii, in Italy, only about 11 of them, but somehow or other, the nomads got there as well and left their mark.
Yeah, because they had the trading post in Mediterranean, including Pompeii. This is the reason why Safaitic was written in Italy. During your research,
absolutely,
have you seen Latin and Greek inscriptions in the Black Desert?
We've seen, yes, I've seen both. The Greek is much more common because Greek was the ordinary language of the Romans in the East. Latin was the official language of the army, and so there are a few graffiti by members of the 3rd Legion Cyrenaica, which was the Roman legion which controlled what's now Jordan and what was the province of Arabia. But there are quite a lot of Greek inscriptions, and some of the nomads learnt to write in Greek, or at least to write, they learnt the Greek alphabet, and so they could sometimes write the Safaitic language, but in Greek letters. But other times they write a whole graffito in Greek. And that is very useful because the Safaitic alphabet has no vowels at all, but the Greek, of course, the Greek alphabet does. So we get a few vowels for some of the words and the names when they write them in Greek.
Also, we know that Safaitic was in use in the 1st century BC, and it disappeared around 4th century AD. Do we know the reason why Safaitic disappeared in 4th century AD?
No, unfortunately not. And the 4th century AD is only a guess because we find almost no traces of Christianity. And by the 4th century AD, when Constantine had made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire, then it is very difficult to believe that none of the nomads had ever come across Christianity. It's not that they're not Christian, it's just that we know that monks were sent out into the desert to try and convert the nomads. They at least would have had contact with Christians. But there is one inscription which my brilliant colleague Ahmad al-Jalad discovered, which actually prays to the Redeemer. And the word for Redeemer is Asa, which of course is the name of Jesus in the Quran. And so and so it seems that is, and we have one other inscription which prays to a god called Wahad, the one, but those are two inscriptions out of almost 100,000 that are known so far. So it doesn't seem very likely that they would have gone on into the 4th century very, very far. But it's not a very good reason for dating that. The end of it is that, but it's all we have, unfortunately.
What's the situation in Saudi Arabia regarding inscriptions? We've seen recently that Saudi government opened up to outer world, and they invited lots of international archaeological and scholarly teams to dig and study sites in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, particularly in the north and northwest. You've been working in Saudi Arabia even before that.
Yes, I was working with the German team at Tema, which excavated there between 2004 and 2015. And I worked on and have published the inscriptions that were found in the excavations, and also those that were in the museum in Tema, which had been found in previous Saudi expeditions and also just by accident during building works and things like that. So I've now published all the inscriptions so far found in Tema. Of course, we hope that more inscriptions will be found, and but at the moment, you have it now in 2 volumes, all the inscriptions known from Tema in lots of different scripts, in Aramaic, but also in Imperial Aramaic, the local Tema Aramaic, Arabic, Thamudic, Temanitic, the local script, and so on. But as well as that, I went out into the areas, into the desert around the oasis of Tema, where there are, again, thousands of inscriptions in many different scripts, and recorded those. And we did 2 seasons. I hope we will be able to go back and do some more, because there are just thousands and thousands of inscriptions there in the local script, in Aramaic, in Nabatean Aramaic, in Greek, and it's because Tamar was such an important oasis in trade, the frankincense trade, coming up and going towards Mesopotamia, and particularly Babylon. And so in the middle of the 6th century BC, the last king of Babylon, Nabonidus, came and conquered Tamar, and lived there for 10 years of his 17-year reign. And he brought people with him who actually wrote graffiti in Tamanitic, in the local script, which is quite extraordinary. Normally the conqueror will write in his own script and expect people to learn it. But these ones were writing actually in the Tamanitic script and saying that they came with Nabonidus, as well as there were others who wrote in the Aramaic script, which the Babylonians used as a sort of lingua franca. But I also work on the inscriptions found at Ulula, ancient Dadan, and that's where, of course, the Saudi government has set up the Royal Commission on Ulula, which is excavating and recording inscriptions and doing an enormous amount to make Ulula into a very popular tourist destination, but at the same time making it possible to excavate there and to do surveys for the inscriptions.
How can we connect Ulula with Petra? Because it used to be part of the same kingdom for many, many centuries.
Yes, Ulula, sorry, continue, sorry.
No, I said that Ulula was directly connected with Petra.
Yes, the originally, I mean, as early as we can go back, which is the second half of the first millennium BC, it was an independent oasis called Dadan, and it had there was a king of Dadan and later a king of Lichian there. Then in the 1st century BC, the Nabateans, who were setting up their, expanding their empire into what is now Madain Salih, used to be called Hegra or Al-Hijr. They then, and that's only about 20 kilometers north of Dadan, Ulula, and so they conquered Ulula, it seems, and set up made it part of the Nabatean empire, and so it became. We have some Nabatean type of tombs there. We have several Nabatean inscriptions there, quite a lot, but it was always then under the governance of the governor of Hegra, of Madain Salih, who himself, of course, was under the king in Petra. And so when the AD, Ulula and Madain Salih became part of the province of Arabia, which the Romans set up. And they had then, but the Romans actually were much more interested in the northern part of Nabatea, in what is now Jordan and southern Syria. And gradually they left after a couple of centuries, they more or less left Northwest Arabia to its own devices to get on with it. And that is very important for the development of Arabic and the Arabic script, because in the north, Greek became in Jordan, Greek became the normal language, and Aramaic was gradually pushed out. But in the area in Northwest Arabia, where the Romans were not so dominant, people went on speaking Arabic, but writing in Aramaic, in the Nabatean Aramaic script. And gradually they thought, well, why should we learn the Aramaic language when we want to write? Why shouldn't we just use the alphabet and write in Arabic, in the Arabic language? And so that is how the Arabic script developed from Nabatean in Arabia. And gradually you can see Leila Neme has done a fantastic job on showing the development of the Nabatean script gradually developing into what is recognizable as the Arabic script by about the 5th century or the 6th century. And so that is a wonderful thing. It was just very good luck that the Romans weren't particularly interested in Northwest Arabia. And the reason for that is that the Romans discovered the maritime way of tacking, which is going back and forth when you're going against the wind in a sailing ship, and the sail and try to go backwards and forwards, trying to get, and the Romans discovered that, and so they were able to bring the frankincense and other spices, other aromatics from Yemen up to Provincia Arabia, to Aqaba, by ship. And this was much quicker and cheaper than having to bring it overland by camel train. And and so they cut out Madain Saleh and Alula from that,
from the trade,
and just
from the
brought
trade route.
it all up by ship. Of frankincense and spices and aromatics, which the Yemenis, the ancient Yemenis, imported from India, and even it seems from Indonesia. So it was very it was very important change in the development of that trade, was for it to be able to go by sea. But of course, it cut out the places on the west side of Arabia, like Dain Saleh and Alula, and Tama, of course, also. By that time, this is by the 1st century BC, were they all declined because of not having the trade anymore.
In 1994, you set up an online database known as Safaitic inscriptions, graffiti carved
Yes.
by ancient nomads in southern Syria, Jordan, and northern Arabia. How many inscriptions did you gather so far in your online database?
Well, the Safaitic database ended up with 15,000 Safaitic inscriptions. And then in 2013, at Oxford University, we changed that into what is known as the online corpus of the inscriptions of ancient North Arabia, Oceana for short. That included all the ancient North Arabian inscriptions, the ones from Dedan, the ones from Tamar, the Thamudic, and so on, as well as the Safaitic. And that now has 45,000 inscriptions, but I hope we'll have many more very soon. It is just in the process of moving from Oxford to Ohio State University, where Ahmed Al-Jalad is a professor, and the structure is being changed, and I hope we will then be able to put in large numbers of inscriptions which have been discovered but not yet entered. But at the moment there are something like 45,000 there, all with reading of the letters, translation, commentary, and photographs wherever possible. Some of the ones that were discovered in the 19th century, we only have hand copies of. But one of the things I've been doing is going back to the places where these inscriptions were found and trying to re-find them and photograph them so that we have photographs of them in Oceania. And I did that in both in Syria and in Jordan, because really up to the 1950s, it was quite difficult photographing the inscriptions, because as I know in my early days of the survey, when we had to have rolls of film, and there were 36 exposures on each film, and one had to keep the films cool as possible, which is not so easy in the desert. And so quite a lot of people just did a hand copy of the inscription rather than photographing. So I've been back in Jordan. There's now Dr. Ali Al-Manasir and I have been doing a series of surveys in the Harra, and the last two periods we've been doing, this is called the Bardia Epigraphic Survey Program, and we have been going back to ones that were discovered, cairns that were discovered in the 1950s, and photographing all the inscriptions there. It is a great pity that rumor that all these cairns cover more recently have been going into the desert with bulldozers, and bulldozing the cairns and trying to find gold underneath, which doesn't exist, of course. I mean, there is no.
Well, if there was any gold, it was taken a long time ago. This is the problem.
Absolutely, yes.
We are talking about
but
2,000 or 3,000 years.
Yes. Well, I think some people believe the Turks hid gold under there, but it's anyway, in the process, they destroy any burials underneath or anything that was underneath, and they often break up the stones with the inscriptions on. And so this is a matter which it would be very difficult to police, I suppose, but it is a great loss to Jordan's heritage, which is very sad.
I'm going to send you another link in a few minutes, because this one is going to expire in 2 minutes.
Oh, right. Okay.
And we'll continue.
Yes.
See you very
okay.
soon. See you soon.
See you shortly. Yes. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Right.
Now we're continuing our conversation, and in 2017 you published a work about the corpus of Dadanitic inscriptions in northwestern Saudi Arabia, in the oasis of Al-Ula, that we already mentioned as one of the major archaeological hubs of Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Yes. And so, sorry. So I was working on the inscriptions. One of the problems with the inscriptions, and there are many, is that uh, we can see what might be a development of the script, and people have perhaps understandably tried to divide it into an earlier script, which they called Didanite, and a later script, which they called Lichionite. But
Okay.
in fact, there was no basis for this. Do you want me to go on
Yeah, please.
with that?
Yeah, please
Yes.
go ahead.
There was no basis for that chronological division. And examining the script, it seemed to me that it was more likely that people could write on soft materials, on papyrus or parchment or skins, or even in ink on potsherds. And when you writing with ink is really the only way that a script changes and develops, because if you're carving on stone, there's no impetus, no reason for changing the shapes of the letters. Whereas if you're writing in ink, you want to do it more quickly, or you want to do it just more easily. And so I tried to show how writing in ink would change the what you might call classical shapes of the letters to much more cursive ones. The and what is interesting is in the inscriptions, even inscriptions which are in relief, and so must have been carved by masons rather than by ordinary lay people. The the letters of the cursive letters and the formal letters can sit side by side in the same inscription. So they seem to have not had any problem with using the cursive form in an inscription. So I tried to show how that was that came about. Is
Yeah, I can hear you.
oh, good.
Yeah. So this is the only group of ancient North Arabian inscription in which there are a sizable number of formal monumental inscriptions, as well as
Yes.
graffitis.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Unfortunately, in Taimur, we only have graffiti in the Taimuritic script. And we don't, we have now, I think, about 9 inscriptions from Dumat al-Jandal, ancient Adumatu, but they are all graffiti. Again, we have no formal inscriptions from there. And so those were the 3 major sites where settled sites where people used the ancient North Arabian script. On the other hand, we have found at Dumat al-Jandal, and Saudi amateurs have photographed and put on Twitter, and and my colleague Jérôme Norris has discovered in the field about 6 graffiti by someone who claims to be the king of Duma, and that some of these inscriptions are very long, and so they have given us a much better idea of the Dumaitic script. And interestingly, he says that he was the servant of Nabonidus, and so that dates these inscriptions to the mid first millennium BC, the 6th century BC. So these are very interesting, very welcome.
What are your plans in coming years? Are you planning to go to research in Saudi Arabia, or are you planning to visit Jordan?
I'm hoping to visit Jordan in June. working with Dr. Ali Al-Manassir,
Syria.
and yes, and with Professor Ahmed Al-Jalad. We will be going, and so I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm always happiest when I'm in the desert, even in the middle of June.
Yeah, because that time is not the best for tourists, but
No,
most of
I'm terribly,
researchers go
yeah.
in the period between June and let's say October.
Hello, I'm so sorry. I've just been. Hello.
Yeah,
Yes,
I can hear
sorry.
you. Yeah, I can hear you.
You rang me. Yes. Yes. Don't worry. Oh no, that's fine. You're very welcome. Okay, sorry, I'm in the middle of another conversation. So yes. Okay, no, thank you very much. Bye. So sorry. Yes,
No problem. We can continue. So you're planning to come in June and continue your research, probably in
yes,
Black Basalt Desert. You're not going
yes.
to the south.
No, not for the moment. I haven't actually worked in Wadi Rum. I've had colleagues. My great colleague Geraldine King worked there, and she was the first really to work out Hismaic, the script there, and she was very brilliant. But alas, she died some years ago at far too early age, and so. But anyway, no, I think there are enough inscriptions in the Black Desert for me to keep me occupied.
We're going to continue our conversations. This was the initial talk. If you
Right.
want to add something extra regarding Safaitic or other inscriptions, please go ahead.
No, I'm fine. I mean, with what we've discussed so far, thank you.
We'll keep in touch, and
Yes,
most likely we're going to meet in June. I'm not planning to travel, and we should meet up in person in June.
that would be very good. I shall look forward to that. Thank you. I'll let you know when I'm coming.
Please, because it will be very nice to discuss these issues in person. Also, we
Yes.
have lots of mutual friends, colleagues,
Yeah,
and people who collaborate with both of
absolutely.
us. And I'm looking forward to publish more articles on your research and research of your colleagues who are involved in
Well,
inscription studies, like Professor Jawad
yes. Thank you.
and
Yes,
Professor
well,
Manassir. Thank you so
well,
much.
not at all. Thank you very much. And I look forward to learning about you instead of talking about myself the whole time.
No, we'll have the opportunity to talk,
That's
and
good.
we're going to discuss these issues and other themes related to archaeology and history of the region. Thank you so much. All the best.
Not at all. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.